important to be in the right place at the right time. Right? We go to number one. So again, we have the same. I don't have a weapon to demonstrate, but the stick is representing a long blade. So again, now we've moved out in range, so that if I'm here, I can touch from a long range away. Right? Typically, this weaponry is relatively heavy as well. So with a small weapon like that, I can turn it and change the direction of the weaponry. But with a big weapon like that, I can do the same, but it takes longer because of the weight to change the angle and things like this. It's a long process. Okay, so the composition, the style structure, is not as complicated as serrata or the middle range or the close range, but it's very technical, again, because it's very powerful. So if you're that far off, it's going to take your arm off. It's not just a little piece. So the structure is very simple, but putting that simplicity into action is really the art, because it's a timing issue is really important, space issue is really important. Okay? Same principles, angles of attack as reference of trajectory and target, but again, the main principle of largo mono is that if we both have weaponry, and I can take his weaponry out, so he doesn't have it, I have the advantage. And so the philosophy on this style is that that's my first goal, is to try to destroy his ability to use his weaponry against me, and I have the advantage. In that process, we learn ways to work around the weaponry as well. I don't have to take it out, I can just work around it. Right? An example being, if we take some space over here. Number one, the same principle of target displacement. So the range is very important, where I move out of his distance and he can't touch me. But me, I can hit him. And this is a really important reference for distance. Because if I take that weaponry out of the picture, I can finish after. Okay? So that's the main principles of the style, or evasion, and what we call defang the snake, to take the teeth out of the animal. Right? So we use two basic principles for that. One, we go against his motion, so he's removed like a head-on car crash. Bang! Two opposites meeting, like that. Bang! I'm working on from there. Another is going in the same direction. Right? And working on from there. So we have a way to meet the attacking energy, whether you're conflicting with it or passive with it. And then there's some series of motions, again, that finish moves or bouclier or shielding idea and on-guard positions. Right? So very long style, very basic in principles, but again, the timing is important to have correct. If we take that as our basics, then we move into interactive environment where he's going to attack me, I hit, I attack him, he hits. So we start to move around and use the space available, but you can see with this weaponry it takes space. So it's got its limitations. If we're in the closet area or the small room, it's very difficult. We start to get into areas where we use the puño, or a small area of weaponry. For example, if you block here, I turn it over, right? And I'm using this length, but at a short distance. So that's something that's important with the Nyan, that's using three different styles as the base, but ultimately what we want is to blend them so that we can be flexible to meet different opponents with different weaponry and different environment, so that we're not locked only to one style with big space or only one style with small space. We want to be flexible to meet any challenge that comes at us. Okay? So this is a real basic look at some of the basic principles in each style. I would like to give you a little bit more of an idea of our small or our base system of Serrata, and looking at some of the principles involved in the defensive structure, if you will. If we look at the number one attack, for example, we have three basics. He'll start with a sweep block, okay, to start. The energy is hand, about 80% in the hand. This is covering, so if he stops that, I don't flip. So here he's got protection. So that's something of the structure of the block. Okay, I hit harder, like that, and from this position he attacks and works on some basic movements to manage his weaponry in this space. Right? If he does a cross block, okay, so the same ideas of principle, but the engagement is a little different because of the attacking angle is different. Right? So we have some, if we take the body and we say that this section here is what we would consider number one. In that you have a variable. I can hit here or I can hit here. It's not the same angle. You can't approach it the exact same way. It's very subtle, but there's a big difference in the consequence, again, if you make a mistake. So we practice with a variety or a range. And that gives us, again, some different possibilities for an angle that's flatter, an angle that's steeper, or something in the middle. And that's a real important subtlety, again, about weaponry, that you're precise. Okay? So it's fairly complicated in its arrangement. We can go into disarming ideas, so that if I here and I disarm, and then working on. So there's some aspects of what we call weapon retention, so that if he does a disarm for me, I counter the disarm and I keep my weaponry. But also at the same time, he's training to take the weapon. Right? So that's another aspect of this style that says, okay, again, if I don't have a weaponry, he's got weaponry. In a combative context, he's got the advantage. And that's a real good illustration of the philosophy of an iron, which is the basic philosophy saying, as a practitioner, I want to be adaptable. My teacher, Mike Inay, he had a saying that said, instantaneous adaptability is the key to survival in combat. So that if he did disarm me in this kind of context, that I could work on and disarm him back or adapt, or he can adapt to that, and we're working into the hands and we change, we adapt with the change or the dynamics of the engagement. One opponent, many opponents, the same principles apply to be able to adapt your style to fit the situation. And that's a real basic view with low intensity, not very intense imagery, if you will, of how the style works.